me your names.
I'm Deb.
Deb? My last name?
Moy.
Moy. And your?
Nanette.
Nanette. Lim.
Lim.
And you are members of, we grew up in SF Chinatown?
San Francisco. Yeah, we grew up in San Francisco, Chinatown.
Why did you become members?
For me, it was because I knew a lot of people there. There was a lot of things that I could identify with, and it was just a whole community thing. You recall history from way back when.
Did you grow up in Chinatown?
I actually live over the hill. Right Knob Hill, so it's right over the hill from Chinatown.
Oh.
When I first got on Facebook and when the group first started, the first thing he did was add me to the group. And I didn't have any idea what We Grew Up in San Francisco Chinatown Facebook group was. It was the first group on Facebook I'd ever joined.
What?
But
was
he was
Leland in charge of it then too? He was
But
the administrator?
He was one of there was a group of 18 or 19 people that first got together to form the group. And so Ray Fong was a friend of mine from a long time ago that we'd worked on. And so when they started it, he goes, "Oh, Deb, you've got to join this group." And at that time, I think the contest was on to see who was going to be number 300. I was number 200 and something like that. And now it's like, what is it now?
1470
Yeah, it's
something.
just unbelievable how many people. This Ray Fong also has a mustache. He was the president of the letter carriers for a long time. That's where I met him because we worked on the letter carrier food drive together. The first one in San Francisco back in 19.
Oh, so he was a union leader. So, I see.
Back in like 1993, I think that's when we did it. So that's when I first started working more with him. So yeah, he just moved to China.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
I thought I saw him recently at
He was
the
back.
Obama.
He did. He came back. He came back for
really?
a few weeks,
Yeah.
and then he went back again.
He
He'll be back and forth.
Oh.
He has to come back around tax time.
Yeah, he's going to come back, I think, in March to do taxes or something. But that's how I joined. And at that time, it was like, what's Facebook? What's a Facebook group? I had no idea what it was. And the next thing you know, it's
Did
like,
you grow up in Chinatown?
I grew up in Chinatown on the weekends.
Oh.
Because
where were you from? The outer areas of the
well,
San Francisco?
my parents grew up in Chinatown. I'm actually a second generation. We grew up in Chinatown. So my parents grew up in Chinatown, and then my dad had asthma, so that he moved down the peninsula for his health. But we spent every weekend up here, and all my grandparents lived here. My aunts and uncles all lived here. So the things that everyone remembers, the stores and the food and all that stuff, is all what I remember too. I just didn't go to school in Chinatown.
What is the purpose of We Grew Up in Chinatown? Besides these parties, besides these celebrations?
A lot of sharing, what we grew up with.
Yeah.
We are all pretty much disciplined the same way,
You miss Chinatown? I spent like every weekend here. I spent every summer here.
Really?
Because where we lived was mostly just to go to school and the weather was better, for my dad's health. But culturally, we came here and did all our shopping here. All our family association is here. All the, everything is here. So that's what we remember is that community. Is you have a community of people. That's what's fun with this group because people say, "Hey, you remember this?" On the Facebook post. "Hey, you remember this?" And then everybody goes, "Oh yeah!" And then everyone all chips in and talks about that. And it's
what is your favorite memory of Chinatown? Growing up.
My favorite memory.
Coming.
The food, restaurants, and shopping. Shopping used to be so different, huh? There used to be a lot of places, like real stores you can go shop, like dry goods store or the vegetable store or the long store, places like that, and they don't have much of that community kind of stores anymore.
Yeah, they don't have Chinese theaters anymore.
Yeah, like Chinese theater and the Chinese
we used to
associations.
go with our parents, even though we don't really.
You don't want to go. It's like opera plays.
Play in the aisles.
Yeah, so that was a real community for us. Like you go to the back door restaurant, or like all our villagers. My mom's side, for their particular village, they did like a lot of butchers, and so. Which butcher store was the people from your village, and you went there. You got snuck, the pieces of chassis on the side, right? Because they give you something to eat. But not so much that. It's just you learn your culture that way. And a lot of that's kind of dying now. There's not that many people that have that same background. It's really different. I think ever since they opened up the immigration and there's more people that's coming from a lot of people came from Hong Kong in the '60s, right? And then a lot of people come from mainland. And a lot of
What generation are you?
third,
Third?
second or third. Well, it's kind of hard to say. Third, I guess.
Third.
Yeah.
But third on my
Wow.
father's side, second on my mother's side.
Wow,
My
that's.
father was born here, so he actually traveled back and forth between here and China. So he
Wow.
was one of the lucky ones. You know.
My
He
mom was
stayed in the community. And
yeah. My mom was born in above the liquor store on the corner of Kearney and Sacramento, and there's and so the whole thing about growing up, you grow up in a couple of rooms and on a floor, right? Communal bathroom, a communal kitchen, all that stuff. A lot of people they don't hear much about
Yeah,
that.
that's how I learned. That's how Leland grew up. His dad had a shop on Grand Avenue,
Right.
and they would live upstairs in one room, just the whole family. And then I guess Chinatown was his playground, Grand Avenue or whatever. Growing up,
Well, my dad used to play hooky and run across the roofs. It's all that kind of stuff that they'll go hang out at the Y. They go do a lot of stuff. It was a very different. I think because my parents also grew up in Chinatown, so I would hear a lot of their stories too. So I'm kind of stuck in between one and another generation in a way because
isn't it kind of unusual for a third generation Chinese to come back and to.
they kind of raised us more like a second generation.
Really?
Yeah.
You went to Chinese school and learned
Yeah,
Chinese?
I went to Chinese school, but I wasn't a very good student.
What?
I went to Chinese school, but I wasn't a very good student.
yeah, I
Did
went
you go to Chinese school?
for only 1 month, and then my mother pulled me out, and I couldn't figure out why she pulled me out because I was doing okay. I mean, I remember everything I learned. I mean, even to this day, I could still remember. I could still recite the first few pages, And then one day I heard her talking on the phone with her friend, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I know, we don't live in Chinatown, but we're close enough." And here I send my daughter to Chinese school, and I asked her, "What do they call you in Chinese school?" And I said, "Nanette." She was, "They're supposed to be calling them by their
Chinese name, right?
So then that's why she pulled me out, and I was thinking, but I was learning. You should have took me out.
Yeah, that was funny. My mom is one of her family's unusual, because they grew up and then her dad passed away when she was younger. So, but she had a lot of older brothers, and so the older brothers supported, the whole family. But she actually graduated high school in Chinese school, which is really unusual because most kids leave, early. So her Chinese is really good. It's very embarrassing for me because she knows all this. I don't know it, all this stuff. And then her brother, my uncle, Chinese was so good. He used to work as a typesetter for I think it was Saigai or one of the Chinese papers. Yeah, in high school, and he was a Chinese typesetter in high school, which means he was really literate, guy. But that's not. He grew up, went up army, come out, worked in the grocery stores. You would never know how much education he had.